Morning, glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Hugh live inside the Beltway. I'm back after a weekend with the Scholar and the Artful Dodger, and of course, Genghis Kate and Teddy Buddha. Teddy Buddha is the new addition, and Genghis Kate has a new name within the family, Cersei, because she is. I don't know if Teddy Buddha is going to make it. We've got guards on Teddy Buddha, but I got to go see the bad guys with the 10 and the 8-year-old, and that was terrific. With Wolf Snake, Piranha, Shark, and Tarantula. Many of you know the Bad Guys books because they're everywhere. The relationship of Willow Wisp was not there. She's the fifth grandchild. She's somewhere else. But Teddy Buddha and Willow Wisp are the double coupon grandchildren day. The cousins born on the same day, and they'll end up being like I don't know if any of you have read the Cynthia Rylant books where you've got Henry and Mudge and Annie and Snowball. So I'm expecting Teddy Buddha and Willow Wisp to be like uh, Henry and Annie. But if you haven't read the Mudge books, they're terrific. But I got to go to the movies on Saturday with the 10 and the 7-year-old, so I'm happy. I'm a happy man. Genghis Kate went with my wife to the playground, and she got the tough duty for as many hours as we can keep her away from Teddy Buddha as he Buddha's out at 2 weeks old. Let me run down the news. The biggest news, the lead in all the major papers. Washington Post headline, Senators strike bipartisan gun deal, heralding potential breakthrough. New York Times, Senators reach bipartisan deal on gun safety. Third headline, Wall Street Journal, Senators reach framework for legislation addressing gun violence. President Biden, according to the bill, will sign the Senate's bipartisan gun proposal. All right, slow down, everyone. We have a legislative framework, which is not language. And like Leader McConnell, I will wait and see. I like what my sources tell me about what is in it and not in it. What's in it? Of course, there is going to be support for the states to create laws that are red flag laws, that are consistent with state and federal due process constitutional protections. So that means probably police initiated. I mean, anyone can call up and say, Generalissimo should not have a gun. But the police are going to say, who are you? Well, I call a show and he won't let me on. That won't fly, all right? If I call up and say, Generalissimo should not have a gun, I've known him for 23 years, and he's lost his mind and wants to buy a magazine to shoot up the studio, and he told me so, they might look into that and deny him the opportunity to purchase weapons. So that's okay with me. It's called a red flag law, but I got to see what the incentives are. Investment in children and family mental health services. Again, they could waste money, or they could spend money well. This is really about how do you put money in the right place. Some protections for for victims of convicted domestic violence abusers. Those restraining orders will be put in the NICS system, whether or not you have a relationship with it. If you got a restraining order against you and you're convicted of a crime, you're not going to be able to purchase a gun. And the language there is going to be very important for constitutional issues. School-based mental health and supportive services and school safety resources. This is where the rubber meets the road. How much money are they giving to school districts to put armed police on campuses? Call them whatever you want. That's what we're talking about. Is how much money are given to the states and what are the strings? There will be some definitional changes to a licensed firearms dealer so that the net is bigger. Telehealth investments, again, that's just don't know. Now, the key probably is the enhanced review process for buyers under 21 years of age. Not a longer waiting period. That was specifically rejected. But they're going to be able to get, if you're 18 to 20 years, 11 months, and 30 days, the NICS process is going to open up your juvenile and mental health records. And I like that. Doesn't mean you won't get your gun. You can steal a car at 17 to go joyriding and still buy a gun at 18 under this proposal, as far as I understand it. But we will see. There's going to also be some additional penalties. Won't help if they don't get enforced by people who illegally purchase straw purchases, straw man purchases, and gun trafficking. What didn't make it into the package? Well, of course, it was a gang of 20 senators, 10 Republicans, 10 Democrats, proposed and rejected by the group of 20 assault weapons ban for 18 to 21-year-olds. That's not happening. Licensing requirements for any assault weapon, that's not happening. That didn't happen. It failed 40 to 60 in 2004. It's not coming back. Mandatory waiting period for all purchasers, not happening. 21-day waiting purchases for all firearms for the 18 to 21-year-old, not happening. Why? Because if you're 18 and you want to buy a 22, that's not what they're worried about. There is no mandatory safe storage requirement. That, by the way, would be unconstitutional. There is no ban on high-capacity magazines. Background checks for all commercial sales, that was rejected by the Gang of 20, Democrats and Republicans alike. There will be no criminal penalties for refusal to store your firearms in what is some national standard of negligence. They're not putting in a lower mens rea statute, state of mind statute for the trafficking statute. So it looks like, it depends on how much money are we talking about, where's it going, and what kind of enhanced investigation for 1821. That's really what it looks like. School safety, and they'll propose a model red flag law, which is, if you've been listening to the Hugh Hewitt show for the last many weeks since Buffalo, and especially after Uvalde, this is what I wanted. So I like the deal. It's got 10 Republicans already. If they can get the language right, it will pass the Senate. And then the question is whether Nancy Pelosi will grandstand. They didn't pass enhanced security for Supreme Court justices, so she talks a good game until it's time to do something, and she doesn't do anything. So we will see. The other big news of the weekend from the Financial Times: U.S. set for recession next year. Economists predict 70% of economists, leading academic economists polled by the Financial Times. Joe Biden's inflation is going to be followed by Joe Biden's recession. Wall Street Journal reports that sizzling prices complicate the Fed's inflation fighting strategy. We had an 8.6 year-over-year inflation rate on Friday, 8.6%. That's the highest of my adult life, right? I consider my adult life since 1978, when I graduated from college. Up until that time, if you're on your parents' payroll, don't count summer jobs. If you're in college and they're paying the freight and you're not on your own, you're on your own when you're on your own. And you know when that is. Sometimes it's 16, sometimes it's 25. And some of you out there are 40 and you're not on your own, and that might be for very good reasons. You might have a disability. But in my adult life, which began at 22, when good to see you, you can keep the Dodge Dart, have a good life. And my parents loved me, but that was it. You go to law school, you pay for it, buddy. And I did. And if you can have that 1974 Dodge Dart Sport, I don't know if I can get over the Rockies. It did, barely. And it was a heck of a car with a racing stripe and everything. But that was my graduation present. Off I went to California and made my life. And so that's the deal. Highest of my adult life. As a result of those numbers, earnings are just going to suck, because most companies are not Amazon and are not going to be able to pass this on immediately. They're not built that way. The 20-year dollar value, dollar has risen to its highest value in 20 years, is also crushing people who export, because it's much more expensive to export. There were arrests of 31 people for a planned riot in Idaho. There was a revelation that a bunch of advertisers are unhappy with Disney and Netflix because the ads they are buying are not necessarily showing. In Ukraine, they're getting very, very close, the Russians, to surrounding all of Donbass. And McDonald's opened under new ownership. So I'm telling you right now, it isn't McDonald's. It just means that they've got a few hundred hamburger stands that are not going to be Ray Kroc hamburger stands, not McDonald's standards. Russia continues to reel under the McDonald's ban. Don't go anywhere, America. I will bring you more after the break right here on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. If you are like me, you've already read Jake Sherman's punchbowlnews.com morning newsletter. Good morning, Jake. How are you? Oh, it's Selena. Jake's next. Selena Zito. If you're already like me, you've read Selena Zito. Selena, I'm sorry. I spent the weekend with Genghis Kate, so I have no idea where I am or what happened. So, yeah, and Teddy Buddha. And Genghis Kate has a new name. She's also known as Cersei, since she's now looking at Teddy Buddha like, who is this guy that wants to seize my kingdom? Selena, what do you think of this legislative framework? Will it fly in Pennsylvania? Do you think that Pat Toomey's going to support it?
Um, I don't. I think it's too early to figure that out. I think this is going to take a while, and what will ultimately happen is it will probably not look the way it looks right now, and there'll be some things taken out. There'll be some uproar, but I do think something will happen.
Yeah,
I
if you've
think.
got 20 senators on a framework, you're awfully close. 10 Democrats, 10 Republicans, and the framework isn't nuts. It's actually constitutional at first glance. I think it will fly through, and I think voters will be happy.
Yeah, and it'll there'll be some whining, but I don't think there'll be any raging, and so I think something will pass. I do expect one or two things to probably move, just because of the nature of our politics, not because they have to or want to, but ultimately we'll see something that'll probably look somewhat like what it looks like right now.
So we had to drive up the 95 yesterday from Southern Virginia back to the Beltway, and we had to take a detour because the 95 is the 95, which is hell on Sunday afternoon. So we drove through Fredericksburg, the old Route 1, and we went by a couple of schools. And I look at every school differently now, right? I look at every school
Yeah.
differently, and I will for a while, and how many interests, how many fences, that sort of thing. I think the armed police at school, the Democrats are trying to disguise this is a school police funding bill. They don't want people to know that, but this is funding the police.
Right.
But they don't want to say John Fetterman, if he can ever campaign again, and I hope he does, he's not going to like this bill because it's funding the police.
Right. That's going to be. Then that's what I mean. I think there's going to be some things in there that upset people enough, and on either side, and that's sort of a problem. And if you think defunding the police has gone away, it hasn't.
Oh
They
no, the
just use
Democrat Party
different
is still,
words.
yeah, they're using
Yes.
different words such as repurposing, or you know what they call it in I think it's DC, they call it violence interruption programs. And guess
Yeah.
what? They can't be measured, and we don't. I heard the DC police chief saying we don't know if we prevented a murder. Yeah, that's just great, isn't it? That's just not
Oh,
really. I'd rather count cops.
yeah. And I have a piece coming out later on today or tomorrow morning about the crime problem. People talk about Chicago and New York and Washington D.C. and the crime is absolutely horrible. Well, it is in Pittsburgh too. I mean, there are places that
Well,
are
that
just
some things never
totally.
change, Selena. I mean, come on, it's Pittsburgh.
Well, we've actually been relatively safe for the past, I don't know, decade,
Not
right?
on
Um,
Steelers home game weekend. You're not. That's
only,
just.
only if you're dressed in brown and orange. I mean, come on.
Hey, Selena, give me a quick update. What do we know about Mr. Fetterman? I wish him well, but it must be worse than they told us.
Well, the thing is, we don't officially know much, other than he will likely be back to the campaign trail in July, and that is where it stands right now. And the as everybody probably knows, the race between McCormick is now and Oz is now officially over. In fact, I go
Yeah,
out with
Dr.
Dr.
Oz is the nominee. He's out there working the crowds. He's campaigning, and he's going to win. I mean, they originally thought, oh, John Fetterman will have a 2 week head start. It
No.
turns out that
Yeah.
Dr. Oz gets a 2 month head start.
Oh yeah, Doctor. I'll be out with Dr. Oz through Erie today and Beaver County today, and I have a great interview with Dave McCormick as well. I hope
I
people check
read
it
that
out.
story. That's a great story. He's obviously tan, rested, and ready for 2 years from now.
Oh yeah, and I think what you're going to see from him is rebuilding the state party is a sham.
Right.
And I think you will see something like a state party or an organization from him. And he's really dedicated to those rural counties that people ignore, but ultimately change elections in both Senate, in statewide elections,
You know,
and
Selena,
presidential
first
elections.
Missouri went deep red, then Ohio went deep red, and now I
Yes,
think Wisconsin and Pennsylvania are going
yes,
deep red. And if McCormick puts money into organization, that will happen.
yes, absolutely. He's not going anywhere. He's in his home in the dreaded city of Pittsburgh, and
When you see Dr. Oz, would you tell him it's okay to come on the show now?
I will.
We'll help him. Just tell him you can talk to Hugh Hewitt. He doesn't bite. He's a little bit afraid of me, but that's he did not want to do the
Get
show
there.
during the primary, but I was a McCormick guy, and that's fair. I will be right back. SelenaZito.com with Jake Sherman. This time I'll actually look at my run. I didn't get a rundown from the producer today. Dwayne is sleeping, so I got it organized. I'll talk with Jake Sherman after the break. Thank you, Selena Zito. All things Selena at SelenaZito.com. The Yinzer Report included. Morning, Glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. If you are like me, you've already read Jake Sherman's PunchbowlNews.com. In fact, I started to introduce him in a segment too early last hour when Selena Zito was on because I wanted to get to the gun framework. But first, good morning, Jake. How are you?
I'm well, Hugh. How are you?
Good. First, can I do a little counterpunching here, just a little editing? If the top of your column is all about the gun safety and school safety legislation, but then your second piece says that the January 6 hearings will lead the week. Isn't that an internal contradiction? Because I don't think anyone cares about the January 6 hearings, given the ratings and given the fact that we've got inflation numbers, SCOTUS opinions, and the gun legislation coming.
Yeah, I listen. I think that I disagree with you. I think people do care about it. I think that the last one was executed pretty well, and I think a lot of people are going to be watching it. I mean, I thought the ratings were pretty good.
20 million?
Isn't that? I don't know. That's pretty. I thought that was pretty good. Maybe I'm wrong.
You know,
I'm not a ratings expert.
Jake, we had 22 million for the second Republican primary debate in 2016 when there were fewer platforms and there were 16 candidates on the stage. CNN and Salem Media co-produced it at the Reagan Library in September or August of 2015. That was 22 million. We didn't have that. We had one network hyping it. We had three networks, three cable stations, everybody in Washington, New York, elite media. This is really blue bubble stuff. 20 million. They are never going to, overpromise, underdeliver is a bad thing for TV.
Yeah, I mean, the New York Times puts it this way: it is in the ballpark of events like Sunday Night Football or the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. I think they're pretty big numbers, but maybe I know you disagree.
Yeah, I do, but that I was actually moving not to the fact that there is an audience for it. I mean, people love to hate on Trump, and they're going to love to hate on Trump forever. But did it produce any new news? Because I don't think it produced a shred of new news.
Oh, I thought it did. I thought. I mean, let me just think back for a second. Yes, I thought several members asking for pardons from Trump post January 6th was interesting. I think the fact that Trump did not call any governmental agency on January 6th, that's very interesting. I thought the testimony of Bill Barr, where he said he told the president.
Let's pause there. I talked to Bill Barr about that a month ago after I read his memoir. It's very detailed in his book. That might have been news to people who actually don't cover Bill Barr, but if you've read his biography, it's all in there.
Yeah, okay. So I haven't read his biography, but so anyway, that's what I thought. Those are the things that I thought were.
Look, it was mildly interesting. I'm not saying it wasn't interesting. It was mildly interesting. There just wasn't any news, which leads me to the headline that says January 6th probe is center stage all week. It doesn't even lead your newsletter, Jake.
Yeah, well, that doesn't mean. I mean, listen, there's three hearings, so it's going to be center stage in that respect. But I think we gave a lot of ink to the gun deal, which I think is also a very big deal.
Yes, it is. And by the way, I did some reporting on it last night, and I posted your tweet, which was a summary, and then I added to the things that did not make it out of the Gang of 20, which makes it I think it's actually dead center of the country. I think it will pass depending on the fine print. When do we get fine print, Jake?
I assume, listen, it has to be this week if they want to get this through before July 4th, which a lot of people do. I actually think that, yes, you obviously need fine print here, and that's going to be a big deal. I don't think they would have gotten this far and announced this like they did without knowing that they were going to be able to get fine print in good condition that they would all agree with. So I actually am putting a little bit less alarm, I would say, into the we need to get fine print stuff. I think it's important, but I do think a deal is a deal, and I think they're going to get this through.
Yeah, my additional reporting was that what was rejected, the Gang of 20 considered and rejected an assault weapons ban, a mandatory safe storage requirement at home, a ban on high-capacity magazine, a ban on background checks for commercial sales. They banned criminal penalties for negligent storage of firearms in homes. They banned a low mens rea standard for straw purchases. They banned expanded trafficking firearm charges. I do think they're going to give a lot of money to school security, but the Democrats don't want to call it police funding because they don't want to fund the police.
Well, I also think, yes, that is true. All of the things you said that were rejected that's 100% true. And I think, here's what I would say, Hugh. I've been banging on this point all Congress, that you have to work with the Congress you have, not the Congress you want. The Congress that Joe Biden wants is 60 votes in the Senate and a 30-seat majority in the House. He has neither of those. So this is actually quite reflective, in my estimation, of where the Senate and the House are.
Yeah. Now, Jake, here's the interesting political side. I drove by some schools on a trip to see my grandkids this weekend and drove back up through Fredericksburg. And every school I go by, I look at entrances now. We need police at schools. But John Cornyn and John Thune are presumed to be the two front runners to replace Mitch McConnell down the road. John Thune is going to win re-election handily. He's the current whip. John Cornyn is the former. Does this help or hurt Cornyn versus Thune? I mean, who wins out of this?
So I'm curious to see what Thune does here. I think
you and me both. You and me both.
And I'm going to be asking him today, obviously. And I could see him voting for this, to be honest with you. Here's the thing. So Cornyn world, and I say that broadly, people who are allies of Cornyn, aides to Cornyn, say that this is quite reflective of how Cornyn would be as leader. Like, put on truth serum. Republicans understand they needed to do something on guns. They understood that. So that all said, Cornyn led them to a place that they could get around. And look, I mean, they got 10 Republicans. You can't get
already. They're going to get 20 on this thing. They might. I have Tom Cotton on tomorrow. I think Senator Cotton might vote for this, depending on the fine print. Let me ask you something, though, Jake. John Cornyn and John Thune could both be majority leader. We have a bench. The Republicans, I say we because I'm a Republican. We have a bench. It's like our 2024 would-be presidential bench. It's deep, it's wide, but those two are the front runners. Do you have odds on those two from your conversation? Yeah, they're both friends of mine. I mean, I'll be happy with either of them.
Thune, it's a really big. Listen, Thune is definitely more beloved by the younger set of Republicans than Cornyn is. But both of those men are. I would say it's neck and neck at this point. Also, we don't know when McConnell's going to go.
It's 4 or 5 or 6 years away. Yeah.
I don't know. I would assume so, but I have no reporting to indicate that. And as you know, Mitch McConnell doesn't, show his hand until he's ready to show his hand. But Cornyn both are huge fundraisers. Both have relatively easy paths to re-election in Texas and South Dakota, and both of them have been in leadership before. So it's really neck and neck at this point.
And hey, it's nice to have a chance to show off the ability to bring a conference together. I think Senator Cornyn likes that, but John Thune can do that too, and he can become part of the package as well. It's just very interesting to me that was what was on that's underreported because, of course, the substance of the issue is much more important than the politics of the issue. But there is that backdrop, right?
Yes, for sure, absolutely. And I have to listen. Thune is up for re-election. He will win handily, but I'm curious if that plays into his calculus on whether he's going to vote for this.
That's fascinating. Of course, South Dakota is a very gun-friendly state. I mean, basically the guy driving next to you in Philip, South Dakota has got a gun. But that's true about Susan Collins, too, right, in Maine. She can't be against guns. I mean, there's guns all over Maine. People have been shooting mooses in the highway forever. It's just That's a joke, by the way. I don't want to upset the
Yes,
news
but
people.
by the way, if you look at Susan Collins has long. I mean, she voted for the background check bill. She has
Sure.
long been for stricter gun regulations. She won by 9 points in 2020. So I mean, Susan Collins. People know where Susan Collins is on guns, and voters have rewarded her for that.
And Susan, and she crushed a well-funded, allegedly close opponent. She crushed him.
Yes, crushed.
And so she has a one commentator told me if you look at everyone in the Gang of 10, they have all just won re-election in 2020, or they are retiring. That's correct. Portman and the guy from North Carolina, who I can't remember,
Richard Burr.
Yeah, they're all retiring, or they all just won.
Yeah, that's true, but even absent those dynamics, I could see all of them before this in another world. You know what I mean?
Well,
like this is not.
Yeah,
this is.
I made the argument it's good for politics for your general election campaign. If you're the nominee, you should vote for this, right?
Yeah, that's probably right.
The center of America wants to do something that does not infringe the Second Amendment, and this framework does it. Jake Sherman, I give you a hard time, but I love talking. I read Punchbowl news every single morning, America. You should as well. It's the real deal. A little blue bubble-ish like I am because I'm inside the beltway as Jake is, but we try and overcome it. Don't go anywhere, America. I'll be right back. Your calls on the framework, 1-800-520-1234. Connection to the Monday edition of the Hugh Hewitt Show. Morning, glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Hugh Hewitt live inside the beltway. I have a friend, Len Kordakovsky, and whenever he recommends I talk to someone on any matter having to do with the Middle East, Israel, the Abraham Accords, Iran's threat, I listen to him and I book the guest. Mayor Oded Revivi, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Mayor, runs Efrat. He helms that city. Welcome, Mayor. It's good to have you on.
Thank you very much, sir, and your pronunciation is amazing, so you're doing good.
Well, I am interested in, first of all, Efrat. Tell me about the city so the audience knows how big it is. And then tell me which of the 18,000 political parties in Israel you belong to.
Well, Efrat is, in Israel terms, and definitely in the United States terms, a relatively small city. It's 15,000 people. It's located south of Jerusalem. There's the city of Bethlehem, and then south of the city of Bethlehem, there's the city of Efrat, really one touching to another. And so if you can imagine that map, we're over the green line. We're one of those who are considered to be settlers, proud settlers. The unique thing about the city of Efrat is that 50% of the population is under the age of 21, which means it's a relatively young community. And there's a very big percentage of people that speak fluent English. Either they've moved from the States or have been born to parents who've moved from the States. So if any of you are thinking of coming to live in Efrat, you can get along in Efrat without knowing a word of Hebrew.
Well, that's important if I come to visit. The last time I was in Jerusalem, I stayed in the city primarily, but it seems to me that it's got at least as much English speaking going on than any. Certainly, you can understand people better than in Texas. Let me ask you, Mayor, what party are you in?
So in Israel, when you run for the office of mayor, you usually form a local list with local issues. And the day after you get elected, all the parties in the national politics try to get you affiliated with them in order for them to mark as many flags as possible and to show their strength. So when I got elected in 2008, which is 14 years ago, I decided to join the Likud party because I definitely belong to the right-wing political map in Israel. But I also wanted to strengthen the larger parties rather than the smaller parties, having in mind the vision of the United States where you have two parties, and hopefully that would have brought to a more stable political system in Israel. But
if I talk to anyone on a city council in the United States who served for 14 years, I question their sanity. I had a lot of law partners who served 8 years, and by the end, people call you about dogs barking and the trash not getting picked up. I mean, really? 14 years on a city council? Aren't you going crazy?
So first of all, you can phone my doctor. I'll give you his number afterwards to check my sanity. There are questions about that, definitely. But I'll be honest with you. Being a mayor, the level of local government, there is so much success and so much satisfaction with the things that you do succeed to do, that it's really a very rewarding job in that respect. And I'll tell you another thing. Being a mayor in Efrat, in Judea and Samaria, and I definitely wasn't aware of it when I ran for the position, I found myself on two events on the stage in the Saban Forum debating John Kerry. I don't know how many mayors in the United States can say that they were in a debate with a politician at that level.
That's absolutely true. But you're talking to the one guy in America who read his memoir, because the secretary was on, and I think I'm the only person in America that read his memoir, because it's so damn long and it's still going on. I mean, how many words did you get? 1/3 of the time? Because if you're going to debate John Kerry, you're going to give out. You have to fight for air in that room.
I agree, but I have to say that even in that I saw some success, because I was tackling him on a notion that he said that all the settlements are built on private Palestinian land. And I basically accused him, how can you, a Secretary of State, say such a statement when you know that that's not true? And why did I say that I managed to mark myself some success? Because a month later, and this was at the end of their term when they weren't willing to veto a decision in the United Nations in support of the State of Israel, he gave the same speech with a slight change. He said, some of the settlements are built on private Palestinian land. So,
that's progress. That's progress.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Mayor, tell me what the reason I really wanted to talk to you this morning is I read the Times of Israel. Michael Oren is a guest every week on the show, and I do try and stay abreast of what's going on. Over the weekend, I can't tell who's left in the Bennett coalition. I'm not sure there is a coalition. Is there still a government in Israel? I mean, there is a government, but is there a coalition?
There is a government. There is a person who holds the title of prime minister, and he even has a replacement, and there are ministers in all the offices. But you are absolutely right that the question is what is actually sticking the coalition together at the moment. And if they got elected exactly a year ago under the notion that they are just interested in getting rid of Netanyahu, it seems like finally they've managed to drop that personal tackle on Prime Minister Netanyahu. What's holding them together at the moment is the fear that if we go to election again, a vast majority of them won't pass their threshold because of their poor work and achievements in the last year. And they're so afraid of going to elections that they're doing everything in their power in order to maintain staying in power, including things that if Netanyahu would have done, that would have led him immediately to the Supreme Court with accusations of corruption and mismanagement. But that's what they're trying to do at the moment. But it definitely seems like most Israelis are under the impression that it's a sinking ship and it's only a matter of time until they're out of office.
Now, Mayor, do you believe, and again, for those just turning in, I'm talking with Mary Oded Revivi of Efrat in the Judea and Samaria region. It's adjacent to Bethlehem, if you want to go look on your map. City of 15,000. Are you of the opinion that a new coalition will form, that, Benny Gantz is going to say, we're going to have a war with Iran pretty soon, so we better get a government up and running, and does it deal with Netanyahu or Yemen? Are you of the opinion that you have to go to elections, or will the conservatives in the Knesset get together and put together a real government?
So I'm one of those who believes that the option with the highest chances is that Netanyahu will manage to form a coalition with the existing Knesset, with the existing parliament, without going again to elections. The reason is that some of the people that boycotted him when this coalition was formed and they weren't willing to sit in a coalition with him are now aware that if they go to elections, they won't be re-elected and they won't pass the threshold. So in order to stay relevant, they might come back to the right, be willing to sit under Netanyahu, and that is the option with the highest chances in my view.
And who are the suspects? Who do you suspect will cross over and say, "Okay, Bibi, you're the PM again," or does he have to let Gantz go first?
So at the moment, there are rumors that one of those is Gideon Sa'ar. I believe that the pressure on Gideon Sa'ar, who used to be a Likud member, is really to put pressure on Benny Gantz to join in because he wouldn't like to be left out. And there isn't a need for many members of Knesset. It can be like less than 10, maybe even only 8 that come from either Yemina, which is the party which is coming apart, led by Naftali Bennett, Gideon Sa'ar, and Benny Gantz. So Netanyahu has an option of cards of quite a few members of Knesset that he can come and pull back to his side, and by that form a coalition.
Do they need Ram?
Ram?
Do they need any Arab party?
No, they won't need the Arab Party because, first of all, the coalition with the Arab Party has proven not to be a successful experiment. Ram themselves are under a threat of not passing the threshold as well, so they wouldn't like to join in. In a way, I would say that Netanyahu's cards on the table at the moment are better than what they were the day after the election, because all those who boycotted him personally understand that they might have done a mistake, and if they want a acting, stable government, they will have to bear Netanyahu as prime minister, and that's where it's going at the moment, I think.
So last question, Mayor Revivi, and please, I'm glad you're in the States. Great to talk to a local elected official in Israel as opposed to a national member of the government, because then you never know who. What do you think are the prospects of the confrontation with Iran coming soon? We have 1 minute.
Well, that's a big topic to discuss in 1 minute. I think here again, maybe even a bit recklessly, Prime Minister Bennett and his replacement Yair Lapid made it almost clear that Israel is extremely active in things that are happening in Iran. People are disappearing, I don't think just because of an act of God, but some manpower that's actually trying to battle against all odds and definitely against the international community who is eager to get back into the Iran deal. And I hope we won't see the actual confrontation and we'll manage to resolve it through other ways, which will put this issue way back in the closet and not threatening us.
I hope you are right, Mayor. We will see. Keep coming back. Welcome to the United States. Great to talk to you. And next time I'm in Israel, I will come find you in Efrat. Thank you, Mayor Revivi. Don't go anywhere, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Stay tuned. 1-800-520-1234 connects you to the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. This is part of the soundtrack to Bad Guys, which I took the Scholar and the Artful Dodger, age 10 and 7, respectively, to see. And I very much annoyed them because I sang it all the way home, and they were very embarrassed by their grandfather. But nevertheless, it's a fine movie at two levels, Bad Guys. Josh Kraushaar joins me, Hotline Josh on Twitter. Josh, I have tweeted out orders today at 10 o'clock. I don't ever predict. They got 29 cases left. We don't know that Dobbs is coming down today, right?
We don't know. There's been some speculation, given the heightened security around the Supreme Court. Clearly, the country's on edge, but there's no reporting that we're going to get the case on abortion today at the very beginning of the docket.
No, and by the way, it's always announced in reverse order of the seniority of the justice, except for the Chief Justice, who, if the officers, the opinion would be last. So we got to hear if there are 29 cases out there. So Sotomayor goes, and Gorsuch goes, and Kavanaugh goes, and Amy Coney Barrett goes. They all go before Alito. The only two who don't go before Alito are Thomas and the Chief Justice. And so I think Breyer might be older than Alito. I'm not sure. Maybe Breyer. But that's how it works. So Josh Kraushaar, Nancy Pelosi has iced the Supreme Court Justice Bill. The most undercovered story in America last week was an assassination attempt on a justice. That's unconscionable. Will that bill get passed today?
It should. It definitely, there's bipartisan support for it, and there's a lot of worry and anxiety given the tinderbox that is this country right now. The threat that some crazy person flew from California to Maryland with weaponry in an attempt to assassinate Justice Kavanaugh. That wasn't a story that deserved front page attention, and I think it's putting political pressure on Congress to pass this legislation that would boost security for judges.
Yeah, Josh, what I think is that the would-be assassin had a plan that if he was abducted, he could plead insanity. Because it's just so well, every element is there. This is not Hinckley showing up outside the Washington Hilton. This is a cold, calculating person who had a crowbar knife, a zip tie. He saw the marshals and he walked around the block. He called 911 because he didn't really want to die. He didn't, and he's getting sympathy from people. He's a would-be assassin.
Yeah, but that sounds pretty nuts. The people have drawn comparisons to other threats or voicemails or, other things in the past. This guy flew from California to Maryland with weaponry and had that on him as he's traipsed around the neighborhood that Brett Kavanaugh lives in. So to me, this is about as big a story.
He shows up at the house at 1:15 in the morning. And then he sees marshals and he walks around the corner and he figures, oh, I'm screwed. And I think he thought it out. Honestly, I am not a suspicious-minded person, but assassins who get foiled, who then turn themselves in when they've been spotted, not a lot of sympathy for me.
No, I mean, it can be both. This guy could be mentally disturbed, but also, as we've seen in so many of these shootings, mass shootings, you can be mentally disturbed and still, carry out awful deeds. So,
what do you think about the guy in Nevada, the killer at the hotel? I don't think he was mentally disturbed at all. I think he's an evil person who had a reason to do what he did. I wouldn't doubt if he was deep into debt to somebody, and he had to execute those people in order to save his family. We don't know anything about him. Mentally disturbed is Hinckley. I'm going to impress Jodie Foster by killing Reagan. That's off the charts nuts. But this guy, no.
Well, I mean, the other big legislation that we're talking about over the weekend is the mental health gun bill that both Chris Murphy and John Cornyn negotiated, and the issue of mental health comes up pretty prominently in that legislation. There are some measures that would expand more rigorous background checks for people between the ages of 18 and 21. But the heart of it is these red flag laws, these the ways to kind of detect, especially among younger Americans in that 18 to 21 age bracket, whether they have some issues that would,
and if I understand, my reporting is that they have due process protections in there. I think it's a police funding bill that the Democrats are afraid to call a police funding bill. They're going to put more officers at schools. Is that what you have heard, Josh?
Well, you look at the outline. Again, it's not actual legislation; it's an outline, but there's a lot of bipartisan support. 10 Republicans, 10 Democratic senators signed on to it. It's a bit of everything. There's some gun rules, gun regulations, the red flag component, big there. You've got mental health funding, and you've got school safety funding as well. So it gives everyone a little bit of everything. That's what.
And is school safety funding police funding, Josh?
I have to take a little closer look at the outline. The legislation hasn't been written as an outline, but I imagine school resource officers, school security, that would be part and parcel of the same thing.
What's going to be interesting to me is I think it's a police funding bill with red flag law, so that the left gets the red flag law, the center gets the red flag law, the center and the right get police funding, but the left won't let us call it police funding. We'll see. Josh Kraushaar is Hotline Josh. He breaks news every day at Twitter. You should be following Hotline Josh every single day. Follow me to tomorrow, America. I will be back with the latest developments. If the court decides Dobbs today, of course, I'll spend all day tomorrow talking about it. But we will see what we will see on the next From the Beltway Hugh Hewitt Show. Thank you, Dwayne. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Jacob. I'll be back tomorrow on the next Hugh Hewitt Show.